Every cloud has a silver lining. That was what Tabatso's grandmother used to say when life turned its cruel face toward her. But living in Seoul, far away from her Botswanan roots, those words often felt like dust in the wind. Pretty, but useless. Tabatso Kimbek had always been the odd one out. Born in Korea to a Botswanan mother and a Korean father, she stood taller, curvier, and louder than most women around her. Her body, soft and full, carried both the pride of Africa and the quiet grace of Korea. But Seoul's beauty standards had sharp teeth, and she had felt every bite, especially from Han Jun. Han Jun, her ex-boyfriend, her heartbreak in human form, had once told her, "You'd be beautiful if you just lost weight." The words had cracked something deep inside her. The man who had once whispered, "I love you," under the city lights now mocked her body like it was a flaw to fix. When he finally left her for a slimmer girl from his gym, Tabatso told herself she was done with love. She buried her heart under long work hours at the hospital's administrative wing, wore oversized clothes, and avoided mirrors, until the day she met Do-hyun Lee. He walked into the hospital like he owned the air itself, which in a way he did. Billionaire CEO of DL Holdings, the hospital's main investor, Do-hyun was Seoul's most sought-after man. Women froze when he passed. His suits were tailored to perfection, his voice deep and deliberate. But when his cold eyes met Tabatso's that afternoon, something unexpected flickered: heat. She was arguing with a supplier at the reception desk, her voice firm but polite. The moment he saw her, her round cheeks glowing with frustration, her hair tied in a messy bun, her confidence filling the room, Do-hyun forgot the conversation he was in. "Who is she?" he asked his assistant quietly. "That's Tabatso Kimbek, sir. Administrative officer. Half Korean. Half." "I didn't ask for her nationality." His gaze didn't move. "I asked who she is." From that day on, Tabatso began to notice small changes. A new coffee cup is waiting for her on her desk. Random visits from the CEO to check the reports. His eyes followed her whenever she walked by. She thought it was a coincidence, until he asked her to dinner. She laughed at first. "Me? Sir, I think you're mistaken." Do-hyun leaned forward, his voice smooth but firm. "I don't make mistakes, Tabatso." When she met his gaze, she saw something she hadn't seen in any man's eyes before. Not pity, not curiosity, desire. And it terrified her, because Han Jun's voice still whispered in her mind, "No man will ever want you." But Do-hyun did, more than he understood. Her laughter, her warmth, her confidence, it was like gravity pulling him in. The more she resisted, the more he wanted to prove that beauty had nothing to do with size, and everything to do with presence. Soon, Seoul began to talk. The billionaire and the big girl? She's not his type. She must have done something to trap him. But Do-hyun didn't care. In fact, he made it public, holding her hand at company galas, letting cameras catch them together. And one night, as the city lights shimmered below them from his penthouse balcony, he turned to her and said softly, "Do you know what I see when I look at you?" She smiled bitterly. "A scandal, maybe?" He shook his head, stepping closer. "No, I see peace. I see fire. I see the woman who taught me what beauty really means." Her heart clenched. For the first time, she believed it. But what Tabatso didn't know was, Han Jun had come back into town, and seeing her in the arms of the man every woman desired would awaken his darkest jealousy yet. And that was when the real test of love would begin. They say the past never truly dies. It just changes its disguise. For Tabatso, that truth came knocking one stormy Friday evening. She was leaving the hospital late, rain splashing across her heels as she struggled with her umbrella. A familiar voice stopped her in her tracks. "Still walking home alone?" Her stomach tightened. That voice, that smooth, poisonous tone that once made her heart flutter. Han Jun. He stood under the streetlight, his hands in his pockets, that same mocking smile curling on his lips. He looked her up and down, his gaze dripping with the same cruelty that used to wound her. "You've changed," he said, circling her slowly. "But then again, maybe not enough. Tabatso inhaled sharply, clutching her umbrella like a shield. What do you want, Han-jun? He smirked. Oh, I just wanted to see if the rumors were true. The billionaire's new obsession. The big girl who captured Do-hyun Lee's heart. He laughed. You must be joking with him, right? Men like him don't settle for women like you. She turned to walk away, but he grabbed her wrist. His voice lowered to a venomous whisper. Just remember, Tabatso, you can't rewrite your worth. You're still the same nobody I left. Before she could speak, another voice cut through the rain. Cold, sharp, dangerous. Let go of her. Han-jun froze. Do-hyun stepped forward, his umbrella tilted slightly, raindrops gliding off his black suit. His expression was pure steel. Do-hyun, Tabatso started, but he was already pulling her behind him. Han-jun chuckled nervously. Seo Lee, didn't realize you were. I said. Do-hyun interrupted. Let her go. When Han-jun didn't move fast enough, Do-hyun grabbed his wrist and twisted it back. Not violently, but firmly enough that the smaller man flinched. You touch her again, Do-hyun said quietly, and I'll make sure you can't use that hand again. Rain poured between them like a curtain of judgment. Han-jun stumbled back, shaking with anger and fear. You'll regret this, he spat, then turned and vanished into the night. Do-hyun turned to Tabatso, his expression softening instantly. Are you okay? She nodded faintly, though tears glimmered in her eyes. You shouldn't have done that. He'll cause trouble. I don't care, Do-hyun said, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. No one talks to you like that. No one. That night, Do-hyun didn't let her go home alone. He drove her to his penthouse overlooking the Han River, where the city lights danced like stars on water. She tried to protest, but he simply said, You're safe here. Stay as long as you need. When she emerged from the guest room in his oversized shirt and soft robe, he was sitting by the window with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. Why do you care so much? She whispered, sitting across from him. He looked at her for a long time before answering. Because when I look at you, I see everything I've ever wanted. And it makes me furious that someone made you doubt that. Her heart pounded. Do-hyun. He leaned closer, his voice low. You don't need to change for me, Tabatso. I don't want a slimmer version of you. I want you. Every curve, every smile, every stubborn word that leaves your mouth. She blinked rapidly as tears spilled over. He reached out, cupping her face gently. No more hiding, he whispered. Let me show you what love looks like when it's real. For the first time in years, she let herself believe. And as he kissed her, slowly, reverently, it felt like all the cruel words, all the years of shame, melted away with the rain. But outside, Han-jun's jealousy was brewing into something darker. He wasn't going to let Tabatso go so easily, not when her happiness made him feel small. And soon, his revenge would test the strength of the love that Do-hyun had promised to protect. They say jealousy is the green-eyed monster that devours its own heart. And for Han-jun, that monster had already begun its feast. After the rainy night, news spread like wildfire across Seoul's social networks. Do-hyun Lee, the elusive billionaire, was dating a woman the tabloids dared to call unconventional. Photos of Tabatso leaving his penthouse with wet hair and his jacket draped around her shoulders flooded every corner of the internet. The comments were cruel. She's not even Korean enough. She's too big to be his type. She must have trapped him somehow. But what silenced the gossip wasn't Tabatso's tears. It was Do-hyun's response. At a press conference for DL Holdings, surrounded by flashing cameras and murmuring journalists, he stood tall in his charcoal suit, looked straight into the cameras and said clearly, Yes, I'm in a relationship. Her name is Tabatso Kimbek, and she is the most beautiful woman I've ever known. Gasps filled the room. The PR team nearly fainted, but Do-hyun didn't care. He had already made up his mind. He wasn't hiding her. Not now, not ever. That night, Tabatso cried. Not because she was ashamed, but because someone finally saw her as enough. Still, happiness rarely comes without shadows. One evening, As she closed the hospital's office, she found a note on her desk. A single line, written in familiar handwriting. "You'll never belong here. Neither will he." Her stomach twisted. She looked around, but the hallways were empty. The next day, Han Jun appeared at her bus stop, a cruel smirk twisting his face. "You think he'll stay once the world turns on you?" he taunted. "Once his company starts losing investors because of you?" She glared at him. "You've already taken enough from me. You won't take my peace." But Han Jun wasn't done. He leaked Tabatso's private photos, innocent snapshots of her childhood, her personal journal entries she'd once shared with him when she trusted him most. The media twisted them, calling her unstable and undeserving. When Do-hyun saw the headlines, fury darkened his expression like a storm. He didn't sleep that night. He didn't smile. He called a meeting with his legal team and with Han Jun's company. By the end of the week, Han Jun's firm had lost its biggest contract. Every news outlet that spread the lies had retracted them, and Han Jun himself was forced to issue an apology or face a lawsuit so severe it would end his career. But Do-hyun didn't do it for revenge. He did it because no one hurt Tabatso and walked away untouched. Still, Tabatso felt the emotional scars. She sat alone in Do-hyun's garden that evening, watching the cherry blossoms fall, and whispered, "I don't deserve you." Do-hyun came behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Don't ever say that again. I'm just tired of fighting to prove I belong." He turned her gently to face him. "Then stop fighting. Just live. With me." Her eyes lifted to his, full of fear and longing. "You'd give up your perfect image for me?" He smiled softly. "Perfection was overrated the moment I met you." And that was when he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Her breath caught. "Do-hyun." He opened it. Inside was a delicate ring, a mix of rose gold and onyx, bold and elegant, just like her. "I don't care what they say, Tabatso. I want the world to know I chose you, not because of what you look like, but because of who you are. Marry me." Tears blurred her vision. For a moment, she saw her grandmother's words again. "Every cloud has a silver lining." "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling but strong. "1,000 times yes." As he kissed her under the drifting cherry blossoms, the city below seemed to pause. Two souls, one story. Proof that beauty isn't found in mirrors or headlines, but in hearts that dare to love fearlessly. But as they began planning their engagement, someone from Do-hyun's own circle, someone jealous of Tabatso's place in his life, started plotting to tear them apart from the inside. They say, not everyone smiles to see you happy. And Tabatso was about to learn that truth the hard way. After the engagement announcement, Seoul buzzed with disbelief. A few called it romantic, others called it reckless, but Do-hyun didn't flinch. He walked into every boardroom, hand in hand with Tabatso, daring anyone to question his choice. Yet, behind those polished smiles and polite congratulations, envy simmered like poison. Among those who smiled the widest was Yoon Mi-rae, Do-hyun's longtime business associate, and the woman everyone had once assumed he would marry. Beautiful, elegant, and sharp-tongued, Mi-rae had admired Do-hyun for years. When he chose Tabatso instead, her pride shattered like glass. At first, she hid it behind a mask of charm. She offered to help plan the engagement gala, insisting on handling the media narrative. Do-hyun agreed politely, unaware that beneath her flawless manners, Mi-rae's heart had turned to ice. She began whispering to shareholders, planting seeds of doubt. She's not fit for this level of society. She could ruin our reputation abroad. She's already attracting scandal. Investors are nervous. Soon, reports began leaking false ones. Claims that Tabatso was using Do-hyun for wealth, that her degree and work experience were forged, that she'd once been involved with a hospital patient. Tabatso found out one morning when she walked into the hospital cafeteria and felt the stares pierce her like knives. She sat down, trembling, her phone buzzing with hundreds of hateful messages. When Do-hyun saw the headlines, he stormed out of his board meeting. His team tried to calm him, but his rage was quiet and focused. deadly in its precision. He found Mireille in her office later that day. She greeted him with her usual poised smile. "Do-hyun, I was just going to call you." He cut her off coldly. "You think I wouldn't find out?" Her face faltered. "Find out what?" "The fabricated reports, the media bribes, the board leaks." His voice was like ice. "I warned you once never to touch what's mine." Mireille's voice rose, trembling with fury. "Yours? She's not even one of us, Do-hyun. She doesn't fit your world. You're ruining everything you built. For her." He stepped closer, eyes blazing. "Then maybe everything I built wasn't worth keeping." For the first time, Mireille saw something she'd never seen in him before: devotion. The kind that couldn't be shaken by power or threats. Within days, she was dismissed from DL Holdings. Every false story was retracted, every journalist involved exposed. And when the media turned to Tabatso again, it wasn't to mock her. It was to admire her strength. She stood before cameras beside Do-hyun, her voice calm but unyielding. "I've been called names before. I've been told I didn't belong. But love taught me that belonging isn't something you're given. It's something you claim." Her words went viral across South Korea. Women from around the world, plus-sized, mixed heritage, overlooked, flooded her inbox with messages of support. That night, Do-hyun took her to Namsan Tower. The sky glittered, city lights like scattered diamonds beneath them. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders as the wind brushed her hair. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," he murmured. She smiled softly. "If I hadn't, I wouldn't have learned how strong I am." He chuckled quietly, pressing his forehead against hers. "You're more than strong, Tabatso. You're the storm and the calm after it." Then, beneath the night sky, he locked a padlock on the tower rail, engraved with their initials, D and T. "Forever?" she asked. "Forever," he whispered. Their love had survived shame, gossip, and betrayal. And now it stood taller than every skyscraper in Seoul. But just when peace seemed certain, a letter arrived at their doorstep, and signed, but bearing a seal Do-hyun recognized. It wasn't from Han Jun. It wasn't from Mireille. It was from someone far more dangerous. A figure from Do-hyun's past who had vowed revenge years before. And this time, Tabatso's love might be the very thing that puts her in danger. They say every light casts a shadow. And for Do-hyun and Tabatso, the darker their love burned, the longer the shadow stretched behind them. The engagement gala was the most anticipated event of the season. Seoul's elite gathered under chandeliers and crystal walls, the air thick with envy and admiration. Tabatso looked breathtaking in her deep emerald hanbok gown, a blend of Korean tradition and African artistry. Every detail shimmered with confidence, every curve radiating grace. Do-hyun couldn't take his eyes off her. When she smiled at him across the hall, it felt like the world had gone still. He raised his glass. "To the woman who taught me that perfection is a myth, and love is not." Applause filled the room. Cameras flashed. The music swelled. It was their moment. But in the shadows near the balcony, a man watched quietly. His presence was barely noticed. Tall, dressed in black, eyes cold as marble. As the music played, he slipped a small envelope into the gift box meant for the couple and disappeared into the night. The next morning, Do-hyun and Tabatso sat together at breakfast, their laughter soft and sleepy. He reached for the last croissant, but she snatched it first, giggling. "You always lose," she teased. He smiled. "Only when I want to." Then the maid entered, holding the unopened envelope. "Sir, this was left with the gifts last night. No sender name." Do-hyun frowned. Probably another card from a shareholder. But when he opened it, his hand froze. Inside was a single black feather and a photograph. The image showed Tabatso leaving the hospital 2 days ago. The angle was too precise, too close. On the back of the photo were 4 words written in Korean. Tabatso saw his face pale. "What is it?" she asked softly. He forced a smile and folded the photo. "Nothing, just nonsense." But his heartbeat told a different story. That night, after she'd fallen asleep, Do-hyun sat alone in his study, staring at the photo. The handwriting, he recognized it. Years ago, before DL Holdings rose to fame, Do-hyun had been involved in a legal scandal with a rival businessman named Kang Seon-woo. Seon-woo had been accused of fraud and fled the country. Before he disappeared, he left Do-hyun one message. "You took everything from me. Someday, I'll take something from you." Now, years later, that promise had returned, with Tabatso's safety hanging in the balance. The next few days grew tense. Unmarked cars appeared near their home. A break-in was reported at the hospital, though nothing was stolen. Tabatso noticed Do-hyun's sudden silence, the way his eyes flicked toward every shadow. Finally, one evening, she confronted him. "You've been hiding something. Tell me what's wrong." He hesitated, then exhaled. "Someone from my past wants revenge. I thought it was over." "Revenge? Because of what?" "I exposed his corruption years ago. He lost everything." Do-hyun's jaw clenched. "And now he's watching us." Tabatso's fingers tightened around his. "Then let him watch. We won't live in fear." He looked at her. This woman who'd been mocked, shamed, doubted, and realized she was the bravest soul he'd ever met. "I won't let anyone touch you," he whispered. But even as he said it, he knew that shadows move faster than promises. That night, as the rain fell against their windows, a message flashed on Do-hyun's phone. A video clip, grainy, dark, but clear enough to make his blood run cold. Tabatso, leaving her car in the hospital parking lot. A man's silhouette stepping behind her. Then the screen went black, and a single line appeared. "They say love is not found in calm waters, but in the storms we survive together." And for Tabatso and Do-hyun, the storm was just beginning to whisper its threat. That night, Do-hyun barely slept. The message replayed in his mind. The shadow behind Tabatso, the chilling promise. "Now I'll take your heart." He moved quietly through the penthouse, checking every lock, every camera. When he returned to the bedroom, Tabatso stirred beneath the soft sheets. Her hair spilled across the pillow, her breathing calm. For a moment, he simply watched her, the woman who had turned his ruthless world into something human. "Do-hyun." Her voice was drowsy, sweet. "You're not sleeping again." He forced a smile. "Just work." She reached for his hand. "Then let me stay up with you. I can't rest when you're carrying storms alone." The simple words undid him. He sat beside her, their fingers intertwining. "There are things I've done in business, things that made enemies. Someone wants to hurt me through you." Tabatso's eyes softened. "Then we'll face it together." He looked at her, half in awe. "You're not afraid?" "I've lived afraid before," she said quietly. "Of being too much, too big, too different. Fear stole enough of my life. I won't give it another second." He brushed his thumb along her jaw, his voice low. "You don't know how much I love you." "Then show me," she whispered. He did, not with words, but with every slow heartbeat, every trembling breath. It wasn't the hurried passion of new love. It was a quiet promise, an anchor in chaos. When the city thundered outside, their hearts stayed in rhythm. Steady, certain, unbroken. Days passed, but the tension lingered like smoke. Do-hyun doubled security, but he also refused to cage Tabatso. "I won't hide you away," he told her. "That's what they want." She smiled. "Good, because I have a life to live, and a fiancé to annoy." Their love became a defiant ritual. Breakfast on the balcony, laughter between whispered warnings, fingers brushing under the boardroom table when he attended hospital meetings. Every smile was an act of rebellion against the fear that stalked them. Still, shadows moved. Cameras at the hospital picked up a black sedan parked across the street every night. A bouquet of white lilies, Seon-woo's old calling card, arrived in Tabatso's office with no note. And then, one evening, as she waited for Do-hyun outside the hospital, the driver who came to pick her up wasn't familiar. "Mr. Lee sent me," the man said, bowing politely. Something in Tabatso's gut twisted. His eyes didn't meet hers. She smiled faintly. "One moment, please," she said and stepped aside, dialing Dohyan's number. When he answered, her voice was steady. Love. Did you send another driver tonight? No, he said immediately, standing up from his meeting. Tabatso, get away from the car. Now. But the line went dead. 15 minutes later, Dohyan's convoy roared through the streets of Gangnam. Rain blurred the city lights, horns screamed, and his security chief's voice was clipped through the comms. Sir, tracking her phone. It's moving toward the river. Dohyan's jaw tightened. Keep them in sight. Nobody touches her. The world outside was chaos, but inside the black sedan, Tabatso sat silent, heart pounding, mind razor-sharp. The man beside her muttered into a headset in Korean. We have her. Heading to the docks. She glanced down, her phone gone, her purse emptied. But her necklace, the one Dohyan gave her, had a hidden panic beacon sewn into the clasp. He'll find me, she told herself. He always does. When the car stopped by the fog-shrouded docks, she breathed in deeply, steadying her courage. Two men opened the door, rough hands grabbing her arm. But before they could drag her far, the night exploded with headlights and shouting. Drop your weapons. Dohyan's voice cut through the chaos. Rain poured, tires screeched, security teams swarmed the pier. In the confusion, Tabatso pulled free, running toward the familiar silhouette through the storm. He caught her in his arms, soaking wet, shaking. I've got you, he whispered against her hair. You're safe now. Behind them, Kang Xianwu's men were disarmed, but their leader was nowhere to be found. Only a single calling card left on the wet ground, the ink smudged but legible. Later, back at the penthouse, wrapped in a blanket and Dohyan's arms, Tabatso whispered, He won't stop, will he? No, Dohyan said softly. But neither will I. She smiled faintly. Then we'll be unstoppable together. Outside, lightning flashed across the Seoul skyline. But inside, their love burned brighter, fierce and unyielding. Because even when the storm returned, they had already found shelter in each other. Morning light spilled across the penthouse, soft and gold. The city below had already returned to its usual rhythm, but inside their home time felt slower, warmer. Dohyan poured 2 cups of tea and carried them to the balcony where Tabatso stood watching the Han River flow under the bridge. Looks peaceful, she said. It should stay that way for you, he answered, placing the cup in her hand. She smiled at him. You still think you can protect me from the whole world? I don't need to, he said. Just from the noise that tries to drown your laughter. She laughed quietly, and he felt the tension of the last few days dissolve. For the first time in weeks, the air between them was light again. They talked about the future. Small things first. The color of the curtains she wanted, the flavor of the wedding cake, where they would travel when it was all over. Then she fell silent. Dohyan, she said, turning to him. What if all this danger never truly goes away? He stepped closer until their hands met. Then we build our life louder than the danger. He pulled her into an embrace, the kind that didn't ask for words. Her heartbeat steadied against his chest. Above them, the clouds began to break, sunlight catching on the river until it shimmered like glass. That night, they returned to the hospital charity gala they had postponed. Cameras flashed, but Tabatso no longer looked uneasy. She walked beside Dohyan, chin high, hands steady in his. People turned to look, but this time the whispers were softer, admiring. Even when they danced, the whole room seemed to pause. He whispered, You know, when I first saw you at that reception desk, I thought you were the calm in my chaos. She smiled. And you turned out to be the storm I didn't know I needed. Later, as they drove home, the city lights reflected in the windows like stars. Dohyan reached across the console and took her hand again. Whatever happens, he said, you and I choose each other every day. That's what love is. Tabatso leaned her head on his shoulder. Then let's keep choosing. Outside, Seoul glittered as if blessing them. 2 hearts that had learned to turn pain into something luminous. They say after every storm, the sun has to rise somewhere. For Tabatso and Dohayan, that sunrise came wrapped in music and gold silk. Their wedding day dawned over a soul sky that looked freshly washed. The garden of the Lee family villa shimmered with lanterns and ivory roses. Every detail, Korean and African elements woven together, spoke of who they were, two worlds meeting without apology. Tabatso walked down the stone path slowly, her gown flowing like a whisper of clouds. The fabric carried beads from Botswana sewn into the hem by her mother's hands, each one representing a prayer. Around her waist rested a thin sash of silver thread, Dohayan's mother's heirloom, symbolizing eternal love. When their eyes met at the altar, it felt as though time folded in on itself. Dohayan's voice broke slightly as he began his vows. When I first saw you, I thought the world had simply stopped for a moment. But it didn't stop, it changed direction. You became my reason to look forward instead of back. Tabatso's eyes shimmered. You found me when I'd forgotten my own worth. You showed me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being seen. I promised to walk with you, not behind you, not ahead, but beside you, even through the storm. A hush fell. Then applause rose like music. The moment their rings touched, the wind swept gently across the garden, scattering petals through the air as if the world itself had exhaled. That night, the celebration spilled into the city. Music, laughter, the warmth of friends. They danced under lights that looked like 1,000 tiny stars, their foreheads pressed together. For once, there was no fear, no headlines, no whispers. Just them. When they finally escaped the noise, Dohayan led Tabatso to the rooftop where it had all started, the same place where he had once asked her to dinner. The city stretched out below, endless and alive. I thought I knew everything about power, he said quietly. Then I met you and learned that real power is peace. Tabatso smiled, slipping her hand into his. And love is the only kind worth keeping. They stayed like that for a long time, the wind carrying soft music from the streets below. Somewhere far away, danger might still be waiting, but they had built something stronger than fear, trust. Dohayan turned to her, his expression gentle and sure. Tomorrow we'll go back to work, and the world will start moving again, he said. Tabatso nodded. Then tonight, let's just be us. He kissed her forehead. Always. And under the glow of Seoul's skyline, their shadows blended into one. Years passed softly, like the turning of quiet pages. Seoul changed. New towers, new lights. But in the penthouse overlooking the Han River, love remained constant. Tabatso had become the heart of Dohayan Group's charity foundation, focusing on children who struggled with body image and self-worth. Every time she stood before a group of young girls, she saw a reflection of her old self, the one who used to hide behind oversized sweaters and silence. Now she stood tall, confident, and radiant. Beauty, she told them, isn't something you chase, it's something you remember. Her words made headlines across Korea. She was no longer known as the billionaire's wife. She was the woman who changed how people saw beauty. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also like, share, and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.